That was my baby. He was a mama's boy. That boy loved me to death. He has my name tattooed on his arm. I was in the room earlier, and my stomach started hurting so bad. And I went into the den. I told my husband, my stomach is hurting so bad. And once I found out what happened, it was just the fact that I was feeling my son's pain. I was feeling my son's pain when they were beating him to death.
That is raw video of the mother of Tyre Nichols, who was not long ago killed by members of the Memphis Police Department following a traffic stop. And we're going to be breaking down all of this as we launch into a day in which the video is apparently at some point going to be released. But I just want to briefly say, like, there is no amount of effort that would be too much to put into trying to produce a future that stops those sorts of interviews from needing to be conducted. Like we've seen them before, and I'm so glad that the family members of the slain are willing to come forward and make it real for people, make it something that people will engage with and think about, and hopefully integrate into their politics going forward. But it's just devastating for them. And every time I see one, I think about, and this is dark, but the people who are watching it, who are going to someday participate in interviews like that, because this is the tragedy of today, but next week and next month and next year, there are going to be others. And it's a cycle that needs to end. Now, the case that we're talking about, as I said, did involve members of the Memphis Police Department, 5 of them. We're gonna put up the 5. They've been fired, now are being charged with second-degree murder, booked into the Shelby County Jail. And we have a lot more video, including previews of what we expect is going to be shown on the video when it finally comes out. But if you are not familiar with this case, here are the details as we currently know them. And bear in mind, there is a lot that is not yet known about exactly what happened. We do know that back on January 7th, around 8:30 p.m., Memphis officers pulled over a vehicle for suspected reckless driving. Quote, a confrontation occurred, which is obviously vague, between officers and the vehicle's driver, which apparently was Tyre Nichols, who then fled on foot. Officers apprehended him, and then, quote, another confrontation occurred, resulting in his arrest. Now, of the things we don't know what about Tyre Nichols' driving had been considered to be reckless by the police officers, how far he fled, who was involved in the initial encounter, how he was apprehended, how long these confrontations lasted, why the officers felt they needed to chase down Nichols, and where exactly this happened. So basically, all of the details. We don't have basically anything. But 3 days after the stop, this is January 10th, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation announced that Nichols had died due to injuries sustained in the, quote, use of force incident with officers, extensive bleeding caused by a severe beating. There are a lot of terms and phrases in American politics that I hate. Use of force incident is just such a delightfully sanitized term for what this actually means. It means that he was beaten so terribly that within a couple of days, he died from the injuries he sustained from this police beating. Maybe he died 3 days later, which is terrible in its own way. Maybe he died a day later and they waited several days to actually say something about it. I don't know. There's a lot of different potential options. All of them are utterly terrible. Now, all 5 of the officers have been charged, but as we don't know almost anything about the actual incidents, we don't know to what extent the individual officers we showed you were involved. Were some involved more, some involved less? We have no idea at this point, although once the video comes out, some of that will become clear at that point. But we do know that Martin, Smith, Bean, Haley, and Mills have been charged with second-degree murder, as I said, aggravated assault, 2 charges of aggravated kidnapping. That's interesting. 2 charges of official misconduct and 1 charge of official oppression. And in addition, and this is one of the most interesting details of this, 2 Memphis Fire Department employees who are part of Nichols' initial patient care were also fired. I don't know exactly what would justify that. I don't know that that will be on the video. I do know that there have been cases where people have been utterly brutalized by the police and could have been helped, could potentially have been saved, but the law enforcement just decided not to. Could that be a potential explanation? I literally have no idea. Brett, there's a lot here, obviously. What do you think?
So the timeline of events is something that needs to be hashed out, and hopefully it happens very soon. I don't understand why we don't know all those things. I don't understand how we don't know all those things. It is hopefully something that gets, ostensibly, since they do have video of the incident, ostensibly from body cam footage, all the body cam footage has been reviewed. And I've seen the police chief make statements to the news about her reaction to it and her feelings and interpretations of it.
We're gonna get to that in just a bit, yes.
Yeah, and I don't, and with that, I'm sure there's all kinds of things that need to happen. First of all, it seems by all accounts that this event itself did not need to happen, but in the wake of it, we need assurances as a public. We need assurances that everybody affiliated with it understands how wrong it was. Some kind of connection emotionally and humanitarian wise, so that we all know that the police chief and the entire police department isn't just covering their ass, but actually understands the severity of it. And when I see those things about the fire department, it just stinks of the LA Sheriff's Department, like a group of people acting together to say, like, you can't even remotely disrespect the police or we will beat you to death. And that cancer seems to have spread to the fire department, where it's like, we will also let you die if someone beat you to death. Yep. And there was a potential for you to be saved. It's disgusting. And this is a moment where everybody involved who has ever said that they believe in reforming the police or doing any kind of changes to policing in America must show their integrity to stay consistent on that claim and back it up, regardless of who the victim was, who the perpetrators were, and where it took place in America.
Yeah, and we should all stay focused on, obviously, like, I think there's a reason why generally in these sorts of things we focus on the attack that happened, but the willfully just stepping aside and letting a person die, I think we can all agree happens way too often in attacks like this, way too often in prisons and jails when someone is saying, I'm having an incident, I'm literally worried that I'm gonna die, and they just don't do anything and then the person dies. Until those things are treated like actual murders, we're not gonna, like, you are responsible for this person's life. Like, that is the job that you have signed up for. If you are free to just sit and watch as the person dies, then all too often that is clearly the choice that is made in a variety of different areas.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.